Harem anime have a bad enough reputation already, which is why when one is trying to convince someone else to watch a certain harem anime, their primary question is whether it'll be worth their time. And of course there are a number of great harem anime that most people would have a good time watching, but for this video, let's not try to nitpick the good ones. Instead, how about we venture deep into trash harem anime territory and see which are the absolute worst harem anime out there. The top 10 worst harem anime you should not watch. Well then, shall we talk about them? Number 10, Princess Lover. Now while Princess Lover is definitely quite tame in comparison to what's further into this video, it's still horrible. Basically, this anime is the adaptation of a hentai game, but it's not a hentai. That's the problem. Everything about it is so poorly constructed, superficial and dumb, but it still tries to add some semblance of seriousness to it, which actually makes it even worse. I mean, a generic harem anime with tame fanservice isn't half bad if you like this genre. However, when it's such a generic anime that tries to do other things, despite not having the competence to deliver, the story becomes irredeemable. If we're talking about the plot, there is a high school student whose parents are killed off by the premise. He is then taken in by his mysteriously rich grandfather, who enrolls him into an elite school and also gets him involved in an arranged marriage with a noble lady. Though since it's a harem anime with pretty obnoxious fanservice, everything from here on out feels more like an unintentional parody than a story. Also, they eventually ended up producing a one-episode long hentai adaptation of this story anyway. Number 9, Rosario Plus Vampire. The thing about Rosario Plus Vampire is that while the source material is really good, the adaptation ruins everything. The plot is about a human who was enrolled by his parents into a boarding school, but all of its students are monsters in their human forms. Every episode is filled with nonsensical fanservice and repetitiveness without any good story to boot. Now, spamming fanservice by itself isn't always what makes a show bad. Of course, it's a different matter entirely when fanservice and perpetual repetitiveness is the only thing that anime has going for it. Unfortunately, they ruin the source material by shamelessly spamming massive loads of fanservice and then trying to mask it as comedy. There is nothing interesting about this anime unless you have built an immunity to such kind of series. It's offensively bad, though not as bad as what we have next. Number 8, the hidden dungeon only I can enter. When it comes to harem anime, they usually take place in high school or a fantasy world. Neither setting is better by default, but going with a fantasy world does allow for more possibilities. This is why it's such a shame that most stories don't even try to properly explore such possibilities. The hidden dungeon only I can enter stood out at first because while the protagonist is the very image of a social outcast, he has the power to know the answer to absolutely anything. No, we're not talking about Google. Instead, his power allows him to communicate with a sage. But of course, it is then blown out of proportion, and suddenly he has to get in on girls to replenish his powers, and it gets old very fast. Number 7, Nobunaga Teacher's Young Bride. Okay, so there is a middle school teacher named Nobunaga who is too far gone when it comes to his fetishes. He also has a strange fascination with the idea that one day a girl would suddenly appear before him and claim to be his lover. Well, that's exactly what happens. A 14-year-old from the 16th century pops up before him and states that she is his wife. It is a supernatural power of some sort that he just unintentionally used. Although technically, she was Oda Nobunaga's wife. Now that she is in front of this Nobunaga, she wants to have a child. Plus, it doesn't end there. He continues to churn out more such girls, and even the ones in his present reality suddenly want to do it with him. Don't get me wrong, a really good story can still be told through this premise, but not here, and since there's no good storytelling, all you're left with is an irredeemable mess. Number 6, Kiss X Sis. Honestly, I like such straightforward titles. I mean, when the red flag is already there in the title, you can just move on to the next show and not waste your time in mental health. But I guess it goes both ways because morbid curiosity is definitely a thing. Anyways, Kiss X Sis follows the story of a young boy named Kida, and his life at home is pretty hectic. He wants to get into the same high school as his twin older sisters, but their lust for him makes it extremely hard to focus. And it isn't just his sisters either. As the story goes on, other girls start lusting after him too. Now, if it makes you feel any better, his sisters aren't really related to him, but unfortunately that won't be the case for this next anime on our list. Number 5, Yasuga no Sora. Usually in harem anime, the plot keeps things safe by making it so that the sister isn't blood related, but not in Yogusa no Sora. The story essentially revolves around twins, a girl and a boy who lost their parents and then decided to move back to their childhood town. Now, I do not want to annoy the YouTube ghost by saying something inappropriate, but let's just say that they have a pretty unhealthy relationship, and it isn't just his twin sister either. The protagonist goes all the way with plenty of other girls too, and those relationships are also unhealthy in one way or another. The anime also doesn't hold back when it comes to the explosion of the intimate moments, so there's that. All in all, the thing about Yogusa no Sora is that it is intense enough to absolutely keep you interested, but in the end, the only thing waiting for you is a bad aftertaste. It's not worth anything, not even for satisfying your morbid curiosity. Number 4, The Master of Ragnarok and Blesser of Einherjar. You know, it isn't just the harem niche that gets some special stigma from the anime community. The isekai genre is often regarded in similar worlds. But do not be mistaken. More often than not, it's because the particular isekai is also a harem anime. However, in the case of this anime, it has the absolute worst of both isekai and harem elements. Everything from the plot to the characters, the animation sequences, and the visuals is so inept and mundane. All you have is an obnoxious protagonist who ended up in a fantasy world. There is legitimately nothing to offer, not even the element of controversy. It's the embodiment of everything bad about the isekai and harem combination. Don't bother, you'll lose precious brain cells. Number 3, School Days. I can almost smell you wondering why School Days isn't on the very top of the list. Well, to be fair, if you compare School Days to the harem anime that's coming up next, you'll realize that at least School Days has a point to make. Yes, School Days is among the worst anime of all time, but it is still not the absolute worst. It is an anime that crosses the line with its premise. The protagonist starts off as your average harem main character. He looks and sounds dumb, but of course he has a crush on a certain someone. However, after he gets together with her, the rest of the story is basically about him destroying her mentally, psychologically, and spiritually. It's insane. I know I made this anime sound more interesting than it already is, but it's honestly not. He just starts getting the opportunity to do it with other girls, and he does it every single time. It's like everything stops for him except finding more friends with benefits. Then of course there is the ending where he is killed off by one girl, then his actual girlfriend kills her, and proceeds to spend the rest of her life with his decapitated head. It's nuts. Number 2, Conception. Conception is an anime that ultimately scars your intelligence. There is a guy who gets his cousin pregnant. This somehow triggers a supernatural event that results in them getting transported to a fantasy world. Then he is given the task of getting the local woman pregnant and also fighting some enemies. But don't judge it based on the premise, although it's not like the premise isn't bad enough already. However, the story and the execution really make you wonder if there is a limit to just how bad something can get. Just don't bother watching it, guys, not even the trailer. It's atrocious. Number 1, Diabolic Lovers. Diabolic Lovers is an anime that looks pretty on the surface, but even just one episode will tell you that whoever came up with this is a moderator of some shady subreddit that hates women. Even a hentai anime has some semblance of an actual story and character nuance, but here's nothing. It's essentially a reverse harem anime where every minute is spent verbally assaulting and sexually abusing a girl who accidentally walked into a vampire mansion. And then, when you've gone through a fair bit of this cryptic obnoxiousness, the story then tries to make you feel sorry for the vampires. Guys, trust me, no amount of detox will help you if you watch this garbage till the end. It's revolting. So there you have it, folks. These are my picks for the top 10 worst harem anime you should not watch. I'm pretty sure there are more out there that didn't make it onto the list. If anything comes to mind, definitely let us know. Time and mental health are the most precious resources we've got after all. And don't forget to bump that like and subscribe button, guys. Well then, I'll see you guys on my next video.